So I believe that it's high time that we look at culture holistically and we see the pros of the culture and the cons of a culture. While we take and embrace the pros, we should derail from the cons.
Hello, welcome to CX TV this morning and a launching of one of our program with the name of Kairaba Show. So here we are at Dalaba Lodge. All right, we're gonna have a very special interview, and I promise you after this interview you're gonna have a new plus. So our interview is gonna base on climate justice. What is climate justice? Some of the threats for climate justice and its likes. So stay with us. We will bring you the program as soon as possible. Welcome to CX TV this morning. We have a very important guest with me here who goes by the name Buba. All right. Tell us about yourself. Who are you and what you are as well?
Thank you so much for giving me this interview. Like he said, my name is Buba Waijane. I'm officially called Buba Waijane, but many people knows me as Buba Star Junior Jane. Okay. I am a climate and an environmental activist, a political science graduate, the current information communication and the current IPRO of Gambia Environmental Alliance, and also the leader of Gunjur Youth Movement for Environment.
Okay, that's very good, and thank you for your introduction.
You're welcome.
So welcome to CX TV, and it's a pleasure to have you here today with us. So our topic of discussion would be climate justice. What is climate justice? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Climate justice is something that is not a new term or is not a new word, but we realize that when you talk about climate justice, many people don't understand what you mean by climate justice. But when we say about climate justice, we are talking about the inclusion, the participation, the equality in decision making when it comes to climate change, by including the vulnerable people who are living in our society, by giving them what they need. That is to say, giving them the access to actually access whatsoever it may be it climate resilience finance, or being it resources that they are going to use to adapt to their environment. So this is why we are actually advocating for climate justice, because we want people that are living in those vulnerable society to get what they demand, or to get what they deserve from the devastations of our environment, because we believe that most of those people, unprivileged people who are living in our societies, are the people who have nothing to do with climate change per se. So if the rich or the developed country are contributing a greater amount of emission to our atmosphere, and that is affecting those poor people who are not even contributing 1% of those emission to the atmosphere, then there should be a climate justice for those people. Those people should be considered, because they are not the one who caused those problems.
That's quite so, and that's very true. Like when you talk about climate justice, yeah, sure, we have to make sure that we prevent our climate from any form of pollution. Yeah. So the other question is, what make you, or what is behind the courage that you take to make sure that you participate in this climate justice, like whether doing a form of activities, because I have seen some of your pictures where you are doing some activity at the beach, keeping the beach out from the pollution in any forms, especially plastics. So what is the courage behind that?
Okay, for the fact that most of the people will ask me, why do you engage in environmental or climate activism, and at university level you read political science? So for me, the issue is I live in a community which happens to be located in a coastal zone, and this particular community has been devastated, and there is a lot of environmental damages in this particular community. So personally, I am passionate about environment stuffs. So I having the privilege to go under some educational background, I feel that there is a need to start advocating for my people, because at the end of the day I need to give back to my community. And then there is a lot of environmental damages, not even from the people living in this community, but the foreign people who are coming here for investment are making a lot of environmental devastation, most especially at a very sensitive place that is at the beach side. So now we started advocating, myself and I gathered some few youths. We started advocating for the climate justice for the people living in this community, because there's a lot of climate aspects that needs to be addressed by the government. So when we start this advocacy, it has actually sparked a lot of attentions from the foreign countries, because this particular investment country that happens to operate here, we call them as the Chinese fish meal factory. They are operating in our beaches. So we said no, there are supposed to be some mechanisms that will control this exploitation, because they used to catch a lot of fishes from this main sea. So we realized that when the research was done, the fish stock is actually going down, and we are talking about Africa has a young population. We are saying what is going to be our future, in in years to come, if the Chinese are to do whatsoever they feel like in our main sea without no control. So we said we need to do something about this, and then we start advocating, we start demonstrations. There was a lot of problems here and there, because the government is actually supporting them because of the income they are generating from this particular factory. And also, you talks about the plastic issue. The plastic issue is a very sensitive thing, because it is the main concern for our environment as we speak, because plastic, if you bury it, it can go up to 300 years without being decayed. So there is an act that was established by the National Environmental Agency also to ban the plastic. But you realize that also most of the Gambian women are dependent on these plastics for their livelihood. So there is no other alternative to stop this plastic. We realize that during Jambia's time, Nani that we are drinking, Nani water was banned here because of the plastic issue. But even as we speak right now, people are smuggling those waters, because we have them in our border here, Casamas, so it's easy to smuggle it. Talking about plastic also, who are actually exporting these plastics, these are businessmen that has a close contact with some government officials, so the policy itself is not effective. So the women that they are attacking in the markets, I think those are just small, they are contributing small part of those plastic, when it comes to plastic pollutions. They must look at the bigger picture. That is to say, the people who are exporting this to this country, those are the people we must arrest to stop this plastic. But it is very unfortunate that if you go to our main seas, our main coastal zones, our main coastal areas, what you said is a lot of plastic pollution. You also have metallic pollution. There are cabris also are there, but the main problem is the plastics, because people live their daily life on those plastic. They are using it. You bought a food on plastic, you bought ice on plastic. So most of the things, or majority of the things, are used by the people use plastic to do their things on that. So it's difficult to control it, and the negative effect it has on the ozone, because when you throw these plastics at the ozone, there are aquatic animals, aquatic organisms that are inside this ozone. You have tortoises, you have fishes, you have lot of aquatic animals inside this place. So they consume these plastics. So when they consume it, it kills them. It becomes a problem, because some plastics are poisonous. So when they consume it, it kills them. So if the fishermen went for fishing, they catch those kind of fishes, expecting that they are fresh fish. At the end of the day, they sell it to people. Now these people will consume these fishes, and at the end of the day, there is going to be health implications attached to it, because the consumers are the humans or the people living in those societies are going to eat this. So it's a big difficult issue. It's very critical, because a lot of NGOs are looking at a way or mechanism to actually recycle it. Some are trying, but as we speak, you know, we have a long way to go.
Yeah, that's very good explanation, right?
Okay.
Yes, you even talk about the Chinese people. No, we will bring that as another day topic, right? Or else, if you want to go deep in it, it will affect us.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Right. So the other question that I wanted to ask you, that is, you talk about ozone, right? You talk about the plastic, how it affects the ocean. So in short, like, how is climate change affecting the ozone? How does it affect the ocean?
Okay, for us, we define that climate change has the shift in temperature and the constant change of the pattern of the weather for a long period of time. That is what we define as climate change. But we have different definitions for climate change. Okay, looking at the effect of the climate change on ozone, you realize that there is a sea level rise. There is a sea level rise, and if there is a sea level rise, there is a possibility of flood. Flood can happen, because if the sea rises above its level, you will realize that there is going to be a flood. In fact, this is the reason why one of our projects we have actually bring up a mechanism, tangible mechanism, that we can be able to cope sea erosion. That is why we planted a lot of coconut plants across the main affected area by this sea erosion. Because of the sea level rise, you realize that the water is actually coming towards the people, where people are living. So if this has to continue for the next 5 years, in fact, some areas, some sandy areas are going to be consumed by the main sea. So now, what is going to be the fate of the people who are living in those communities when the sea has to rig them? Because we realize that we are living in a very vulnerable community, a very poor community, where people are defenseless. So if this particular catastrophe has to happen, what will happen to the people living? So this is why we said, okay, there is a barrier that we can do by planting coconut trees. Because if you plant the coconut trees, the root, so now it will leave the sand dunes. If it leaves the sand dunes now, that sand will be able to protect this ozone from entering into the main settlement of the people. Yes.
Oh, that's great. I think I also have a takeaway on that, right? Yes. So the other thing is, we talk about climate change, like how it affects the ozone, and we have talked about a lot of things, right? So the other thing is how climate change affects our farms and our foods.
I think that is a concern as we speak right now. Climate change, the effect of climate change on our farmers or on our farms, and also when it talks about the climate change on our food also, there is a threat to it. Because when we talk about our farms, the result of climate change, there is dissatisfaction is happening, drought is happening, okay? And also our food, there is insecurity of food. People are hungry. There is insecurity when it comes to job unemployment. People needs to be employed. There is migration when it comes to that aspect also. People are migrating from one place to another, because where they are living once used to be a greener pasture for them. But now, because of climate change, there is a drought, there is unemployment, there is civil unrest. You know, there is a lot of things surrounding the environment. People need to migrate from one place to another in search of a greener pasture. So you realize that when it comes to our lands, you know, the lands, most of the lands are no more fertile as it used to be before. So that affects our agricultural sector, that affects our farmers, our poor farmers a lot. Because if those farms are no more fertile, there will not be a good production when it comes to the food aspect of it. So the food aspect of it is somehow also very critical, because there is a change in our rain pattern. The raining pattern has changed. We experience Gambia here, we experience rain for like 3 months. If it past 3 months, it is going to be 4 months raining. So, but we experience a delay in rain. For these past years, we are experiencing that. And we realize that that is going to affect our farmers' food production. And this is all because of the effect, negative effect of climate change. So how do we cope? Some of this effect that we are actually encountering, because people are still cutting down trees,
yes.
And these trees attract rain, more rains. If there is no tree, it is going to be difficult. This is why in the desert regions it's always difficult when it comes to food sustainability, because of there is no enough rain coming now. We cannot have our food sufficiency, as we said. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, and like if the cultivation is limited, like we don't have enough rain, you know, farmers will not cultivate like they used to.
Sure.
All right, and in other hand, that also would affect our GDP.
Sure.
So government have to do a lot of work to make sure that, you know, climate justice is served.
They have a lot of work to do. In fact, they have a huge part of it, because they are stakeholders in this.
Yes.
So I believe they should be able to come up with mechanisms that will address some of or most of these challenges, because it is getting late. It is late already, and things are getting more difficult for us as a country. So if the government did not take any step further, it is going to be difficult as we speak. Time will come. This country, people are still talking about hungriness, but there is going to be a lot of hungriness in this country if the government did not step in.
Yeah, that's quite sure, because, you know, like if you look at our government, you know, you look at the way African, you know, the way our political parties govern and the way they take things, you know, it's like we don't put much attention to climate justice, like climate change. You know, we don't government did not put their plans to it. You know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's too low.
Sorry to say, but if our population, I would say only 30% of our populations are climate change conscious. Those are the people who really knows that there is a reality that is actually surrounding us, and most of this reality is as a result of human activity. So how do we cope this reality? But some people, if you talk to them about climate, they say, you know, it's not true. In fact, if you say people, the ozone is coming or the sea is coming towards you, say, look at this madman. You don't know what you are talking about. So they don't understand. But I think the government also, they should do what we call as sensitizations, campaigns for people to know.
Yes.
Because most of the farmers, in fact, they are doing farming. Yes, they are producing a lot of foods and also, but they don't actually know the cause of climate change. Why is it that there is a change in rain pattern? Why is it that they are not getting that amount of food they used to? Most of them will say their soil is no more fertile. That contributes, but also there is a bigger contributor to that aspect of it. So they should actually educate them on this aspect. Yes.
Yeah, that is right. So I know you are environmental activist, so I know you must feel like you must have obstacles, like challenges in doing this, right? So and you talk about planting a coconut tree, something like that. So in doing so, that what are some of the challenges that you face? Because I know in Gambia here you don't get that free. You have to buy it, right? So that one also you have to talk about finance, all right? How to fund that project, So you in short, you have a lot of things that you have to do to make sure that climate justice served. So what it takes you to make sure that that climate justice served. I mean the challenges.
Well, I think it's a very difficult and a very complicated issue when it comes to climate financing.
Yes.
Because all these climate issues you are talking about, if there is no financing, no action will be attainable. It's difficult because you need finance to attain all these goals, and accessing those finance is the most difficult part of it. Because if you, for example, your organization is doing issues in complementing the effort of the government in climate issues, but now it's difficult for government to give you fund because you need to go through some paperwork processes that most of the organizations cannot do, but not because they are not contributing positively in fight against climate change mitigation. But now the government is the problem here, because you need to go through these paperwork before they can give you that because they can give you that funding. And most of the farmers, poor farmers, cannot do this, because you need the technocratic knowledge to draft a proposal, a proper proposal to access this fund. So most of the time, our organizations, we once won a project from the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources. We won a project of about some amount of money that I would not want to disclose, but we won that money from them to actually do what we call seedling propagations. Seedling propagations in schools, different schools, which we did with different schools, and it was a success. And we have actually tendered all the documents to them on what we did, and they were impressed about it. So these are some of the things we are actually encouraging the government to support. To support the youths or the farmers who are in the process of climate change mitigation processes. And then you look at the coconut, as you said, most of this funding, our fundings, are coming from individual donors. For example, people who are environmental lovers, they are concerned or they are environmental conscious, they will donate us with these trees. Most of them are from foreign, Europe countries, that they are impressed with the effort that we are doing towards the climate change mitigation. So they will donate us with coconut trees, and this is how we actually get our funding from.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's also good. I wish I'm that much strong so that I can also support the people.
Thank you.
I believe, nothing in this world can be done without a climate justice. Like, when we don't have a proper rain, like it's not raining like it used to be, our contribution will be limited, and as a result that would increase the poverty. All right, and Africa, our biggest challenges here is poverty. Sure. Because when people are poor, they tend to do anything to make sure that they survive. All these criminal things that are happening in the country is all of hunger, I can say. All right, but if government put their targets to make sure that climate justice serve, that will help us. That will help us very well. So
that's right, because you see, when it comes to donating a tree, for us what we believe in is just a commitment, because there is an initiative that we did, we call it as one man one tree. We initiated that in our organization Gunjur here, and other communities copy us to do the same thing. In fact, most of the communities that copy us, they did wonderful. They did great. So we said, you can donate one tree, it will make change. So this is some of the strategies we use to involve the community to take responsibility of their doings or what is happening in their community without even having fund from the outsiders.
Yeah, sure. Now for you, when you come to Gambian youth, Yeah, once in a million.
Thank you.
Because I usually when I see your post, like I see your pictures on like you're at the beach doing some exercise, like cleaning the beach. You know, I was like, hey, look at Buba. He's a bachelor degree holder, and then here he's at the beach doing this sort of activities. And like even what you said about like youths, I think it has much to do with us than the elderly people.
Sure.
Like if you look at what ST is even doing, you know, I think a lot of youths have to embark on the same thing, you know, to make sure that, you know, they plant a lot of trees.
Sure.
You know, when we do that, you know, our we can restore our forest and we can have a good environment as well.
Exactly.
Look at this place; it's very lovely. It's so green, right?
And that is why I love it here.
Yeah, it's so green.
Yeah.
The time I just ended, I was like, oh, this place is so good.
Exactly.
So almost this brings us to the end of the program. All right. Yeah. So we will give you a chance whether you have to our beautiful viewers here.
Okay. So what we say is climate change is real. People must be able to have this conscious mind that there is something that is happening to our world, and then this is caused by our activities, human activities, and it is only this generation that can be able to mitigate this effect of the climate change. We must take the responsibility as the youth of this nation or this continent or this world to come together as one people with one goal and one objective to be able to fight this common enemy we call as climate change. And in attaining climate justice, the developed world must be able to finance. They should be scaling up their financial status to meet the expectation of the developing countries, because in Africa we contribute a less amount of emission, 3% of the emission to the atmosphere, but the majority of those contributions of the emissions are coming from the developing world, because we have less factories that are operating here, but they have a majority. But their actions that they are doing due to the globalizations, most of those actions are actually affecting Africa more than any other place. So we are calling on their leaders to scale up their finance so that we can be able to attend our climate justice. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Buba. This brings us to the end of the program, but we will not go like that. First, I forgot to thank Fatmada for giving us this link. Like, she's the one who created all these stuff, right?
Yes, sure.
Because he gave me your number and then I started communicating with Buba, and I found out that he's also a good guy. So Fatmada is a very phenomenal lady. So without much we do, we will thank her also for the connection as well. So stay tuned, and we wish you you come back here with me, the same program that is Kairaba. So don't forget to like, subscribe and share our video as well. Thank you.